I'm a janitor at a remote mental hospital. The rules are terrifying. The job nobody wants. They said the hospital was just old, that the screams echoing through the halls were just echoes. But the job paid well, and after my life hit rock bottom, I wasn't in a position to ask too many questions. I didn't know what was waiting for me past those iron gates. I didn't know about the rules, and I sure as hell didn't know what would happen if I broke one. My name is David Holloway, age 32, divorced, flat broke. 2 months ago, I was sleeping in the back of my rusted out sedan behind a Taco Bell dumpster. Now, I mop blood off the tile floors of a building that hasn't seen sunlight in decades. It started with a classified ad. Help wanted, janitorial position, night shift, isolated location, must follow strict rules, high pay. That last part, high pay, made me ignore all the red flags. When you're starving, warnings look a lot like opportunities. I took a bus as far north as they'd let me go, then hitched a ride with a trucker who only spoke in grunts and spit tobacco into a can of Mountain Dew. After 5 hours on winding mountain roads with no cell service and no other vehicles in sight, he pulled off onto a gravel path, pointed with his chin, and said, "There." The building loomed at the end of a narrow drive, swallowed in mist, and covered in ivy like the woods were trying to take it back. St. Sebastian's Psychiatric Rehabilitation Center, but the sign had long since faded, and someone had spray painted over the word rehabilitation with a single word: run. The first thing they gave me when I stepped through the front doors wasn't a uniform or a badge. It was a laminated piece of paper with 11 typed rules. Rules for janitorial staff. Night shift. Rule number 1, never enter room 213. It is permanently locked for your safety. Rule number 2, if you hear a baby crying, do not investigate. We do not house infants. Rule number 3, the patients are all gone. If you see someone in a hospital gown, avoid eye contact and continue cleaning. Rule number 4, lights flicker between 3:12 to 3:17 a.m. Do not be in the West Wing during this time. Rule number 5, if you find a red key, return to the front desk immediately. Do not pocket it. Rule number 6, the chapel is off limits after midnight. Rule number 7, ignore all phone calls from internal lines. No one is calling you. Rule number 8, if you hear footsteps behind you, keep walking. Do not run. Rule number 9, whistling indicates it's time to take a break. Do not whistle back. Rule number 10, should you see your reflection blink when you do not, report to the supervisor. Rule number 11, there is no basement level 2. If the elevator takes you there, do not exit. I read it twice, laughed once, and tucked it into my pocket. I thought it was a hazing tactic, some weird internal joke. But even then, something inside me twisted, like my instincts were warning me this was no joke. That night, I learned how right they were. The head custodian was a man named Thomas, 60-ish, bald, pale skin like he hadn't seen the sun since the Reagan administration. He didn't smile, didn't blink much either. "This is the supply closet," he said, gesturing to a rusted door. "Mops, bleach, gloves. No cell phones on shift. You'll be given a radio. You don't call for help unless it's real." I asked him what real meant. "You'll know," he said. By 10 p.m., the place felt like a tomb. The last of the daytime staff trickled out and silence settled in. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy kind like something was watching. My job was simple: clean the east corridor, rooms 201 through 220, replace linens, mop the hallways, check for water leaks, log anything weird. Weird, that was the actual term they used in the checklist. Not damaged or in need of repair, just weird. Room 213 had a heavy iron lock on it. Scratches marred the surface, as if something had tried to claw its way out. Someone had stuffed paper in the keyhole, taped it over, and written in Sharpie. Don't. I skipped it. I wasn't that dumb. Around midnight, as I mopped outside 207, I heard it. The sound of a baby crying. Soft at first, then louder. It echoed down the hall in waves, bouncing off the old tile like sonar. My instinct screamed at me to stay put, but something primal tugged at my chest. The kind of thing wired into us as humans. A crying baby. You're supposed to help. I took one step forward. Then I remembered rule number 2. Do not investigate. I backed up, pressed my back to the wall. The crying stopped. Just like that. Like it was never there at all. By 1:45 a.m., the halls began to change. I don't mean metaphorically. I mean literally. The wallpaper peeled in patterns I swore weren't there before. A door that had been at the end of the hall was now missing. And when I looked into one of the mirrors outside room 215, I saw my reflection staring back, but it wasn't copying my movements. I raised my hand. It didn't. It just smiled. That's when I radioed Thomas. Did you blink? He asked, voice raspy. No, I whispered. Log it and move on. That was it. Log it and move on. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the lights began to flicker. I wasn't in the West Wing, thank God. But even from where I stood, I could see the darkness there pulse like a beating heart. The walls seemed to breathe. The floor groaned like it was being torn open. And something moved in the flicker. A tall shadow, slender, gliding instead of walking. It stopped at the very edge of the hallway and tilted its head toward me, like it could see me, like it was deciding. Then it disappeared. By 3:30 a.m., I was finishing up near the laundry chute when I saw it. The red key, just sitting there on the floor like someone had dropped it. Ornate, cold to the touch, and humming ever so slightly like it had a heartbeat. I picked it up just for a second, and the hallway tilted. Not metaphorically. I mean it tilted. The fluorescent lights above warped into jagged spirals. The air got heavier, like it was being vacuumed out of the room. My vision blurred, and somewhere deep in the building, I heard a metallic door unlock. I dropped the key. Instantly, the pressure released. The hallway snapped back to normal. I snatched it up with my gloves and rushed it to the front desk where a wooden box with a glass lid waited. Inside were dozens of other red keys. Some old, some new, all humming. I slid the key in. The humming stopped. When my shift ended at 6 a.m., I stumbled out of the building in a daze. My hands were shaking. My heart wouldn't stop racing. But Thomas met me at the door, handed me a folded envelope, and said only one thing. You followed the rules. Good. I opened the envelope. Inside, $800 for one night. And taped to the back of the envelope was a new rule. Rule 12. If your pay ever arrives in an envelope with a red paper clip, do not return for your next shift. There was no red paper clip. I came back the next night, but the second night was worse. And that's when I saw what was inside room 213. Whispers from room 213. I told myself I wouldn't go back. After the first night, after seeing my reflection smile on its own and hearing that baby cry from somewhere no child should ever be, I swore I wouldn't return. No amount of money could be worth the weight of what I felt in that building. And yet, the envelope on my motel bed the next morning held no red paperclip, just $800 in crisp bills. That kind of cash, weekly, was enough to change everything for me. So, I told myself the rules were enough. If I followed them exactly, I'd be fine. I was wrong. The second shift started like the first. Fog curling like cigarette smoke over the parking lot. Iron gates grinding closed behind me like the jaws of something ancient. Inside, the air had a taste like metal and mold. Thomas was waiting at the front desk again. He didn't greet me, didn't smile, just handed me a clipboard and a plastic radio. His eyes looked worse this time, more sunken, like he hadn't slept, or had seen something he shouldn't have. "There's a new rule," he said quietly. I froze. "A new one?" He nodded, slid me a fresh laminated sheet. "Rule 13. If you see a staff member with a stitched mouth, do not engage. Leave the floor immediately and report it to Thomas. Do not let them touch you." My mouth went dry. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. I began my cleaning routine down the west corridor, still avoiding room 213 like it radiated poison. The scratch marks on the door seemed deeper than the night before, like whatever was inside had gotten more desperate. The door rattled once. I froze. It rattled again, then silence. I backed away slowly, heart jackhammering in my chest. My mop bucket sloshed as I moved. I didn't turn my back on that door until I hit the corner. That night, I was assigned to clean the records wing, 3 floors up and only accessible by elevator. The elevator groaned as I stepped inside, flickering under the dim bulb. The panel buttons were old, crusted with grime, and labeled in faded brass. B1, G123. I pressed 3. The elevator started with a jolt. Then, just before it reached the 3rd floor, the elevator stopped. The lights went out. For a few seconds, there was nothing but mechanical hum and my breath in the dark. Then, without warning, a soft ding. A new light illuminated on the panel. A button I hadn't pressed. B2. The elevator descended. I jammed my fingers into the control panel, trying to cancel it, trying to force the doors open, but nothing worked. The elevator was taking me to a floor that shouldn't exist. Rule number 11. There is no basement level 2. If the elevator takes you there, do not exit. The doors creaked open. The hallway beyond was pitch black, but something stood just outside the threshold. A silhouette. It was tall, too tall, and seemed to pulse with the shadows. Its head brushed the ceiling. Its limbs were too long, and it didn't move like anything human. It just waited like it knew I was inside. I stayed in the elevator. The figure tilted its head slightly, as though confused. Then it stepped back into the dark and vanished. The elevator doors closed again. The car jolted upward and finally stopped on floor 3. I collapsed against the wall and took a long breath. The records wing was worse than I expected. It smelled like dust and chemicals. Metal filing cabinets stretched down narrow corridors like cold coffins, and the fluorescent lights flickered above like dying stars. I began my work, wiping down door handles, replacing old biohazard bins. That's when I heard it. Whistling. High-pitched. Cheerful. Off-key. Rule number 9. Whistling indicates it's time to take a break. Do not whistle back. I stopped mopping. Looked down the hallway. No one. The whistling grew louder. Closer. Then it stopped just behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Every cell in my body screamed to run, but I just gripped the mop handle and stood perfectly still. A cold breath whispered across my neck. I squeezed my eyes shut, and then it was gone. At 2:45 a.m., the building lost power. The emergency lights kicked in, red and low, like the halls were soaked in blood. The radio on my hip crackled. Thomas's voice. "Where are you?" "Records," I whispered. "Don't move," he hissed. "Stay exactly where you are. One of them is loose." "One of what?" No answer. Just static. At 3:05 a.m., I heard footsteps. Not the heavy, echoing kind of boots or sneakers. These were soft, bare, like someone walking with wet feet on tile. They came from down the hall. I pressed my back to the filing cabinet, holding my breath. The footsteps stopped around the corner. Silence stretched, long and thin. Then a face. Pale, eyes too wide, mouth sewn shut with thick, black thread. Its neck craned like a bird's, tilting as it stared straight at me. Rule number 13. Do not let them touch you. I moved slowly, keeping my eyes low, and slid into the adjacent room. The door creaked closed. For the next 10 minutes, I hid behind a medical cabinet. The stitch mouth figure didn't follow, but I heard something scrape across the door, like nails. Slow, deliberate. Eventually, the footsteps faded. When the lights flickered back on around 3:40 a.m., I made my way down to the front desk. The whole hospital felt wrong, like something had shifted during the outage. The temperature had dropped. The walls had a faint pulse to them. In room 213, the door was open. Not much, just a sliver, but it had definitely been shut before. I radioed Thomas. No answer. I couldn't help myself. I leaned closer, just enough to peek inside. The room was dark, walls covered in what looked like writing, scratched into the concrete in hundreds of frantic, overlapping lines. In the corner of the room stood a chair, straps on the arms, rusted, and next to the chair was a small metal table. On that table sat another laminated card. Rule 14, never look inside room 213. My mouth went dry. I had already looked. That night, in the security office, I reviewed the footage. I needed to know what had opened the door. Needed to understand what I was dealing with. The cameras were blacked out from 2:30 to 3:50 a.m. During the time I saw the Stitchmouth staff member, there was nothing recorded. Just static, except for one frame. One single flickering image caught between the darkness. Room 213. Door open. Inside, sitting in the chair. Me, strapped down, eyes wide, mouth open in a scream. When I confronted Thomas at the end of my shift, he looked at me differently, like he knew something had changed. "You peeked, didn't you?" I didn't respond. He handed me the envelope, and this time, taped to the back wasn't a red paperclip. It was a black one. There was no new rule that morning, just a scribbled note written in Thomas's handwriting. If they mark you with black, the hospital has chosen you. You can't leave. Not now. I walked out to the parking lot. My car wouldn't start. No signal on my phone. Fog thicker than ever. And behind me, the lights inside St. Sebastian's flickered once, twice, and went out completely. The black paperclip. You'd think I'd run. Anyone sane would have. Anyone with common sense would have taken the hint, ditched the job, and found the nearest bus stop, even if it meant walking 30 miles through dead forest to get there. But this place, it pulls you in, like the hospital itself wants you here. I tried leaving. That morning, after I found the black paperclip on the envelope, after the hospital swallowed my phone's signal and the fog grew teeth, I tried walking. I got 2 miles down the road, just woods and silence. Then I saw the hospital again, right in front of me, exactly where I started. I've been walking in a circle. It wasn't just the landscape. Something about reality itself was warping, twisting in ways my brain couldn't make sense of. I saw another janitor on the road that morning. Or rather, I saw myself. Same uniform, same busted sneakers, same scar on the left hand. He didn't speak, just stood there, staring. His mouth was sewn shut. The next shift started with rain, if you can even call it that. It was thick, dark, and smelled like burnt hair. I watched it smear across the windows of St. Sebastian's like grease. The lights flickered as I stepped inside. Thomas was gone. No note, no envelope, just a small box on the front desk with my name on it. Inside was a new rule sheet. This one stained, aged, the lamination cracking at the corners, and a key. Room 13. New rules. If the key is cold, room 13 is empty. If it's warm, someone is inside. Do not enter. You may hear your name whispered in the vents tonight. Do not respond, no matter who it sounds like. There is a janitor closet at the end of the east wing that should not exist. Do not open the door if you hear laughter behind it. Between 2:15 and 2:45 a.m., you may see a man in patient scrubs offering you a card trick. Do not pick a card. If you do, finish the trick or he will follow you forever. Room 213, must remain closed. If it opens again, it means something got out. I began my rounds with the key to room 13 clenched in my hand. It was warm. I didn't go in. Instead, I headed to the east wing. The smell hit first, coppery and raw, like blood baked into the tiles. Then I saw it. The janitor closet that shouldn't be there. It wasn't on any map. The plaque on the door was newer than the others, almost like it had been added recently or moved. There were faint scuff marks around the hinges, like the door had been opened again and again by something eager to get out. I pressed my ear to the wood. Nothing. Then a giggle, soft, childlike, and bubbling with something far too eager. I backed away. The handle twitched. Once, twice, then stopped. I fled the east wing and made my way toward the psychiatric archives on the second floor, hoping for something resembling normal. At 1:45 a.m., I passed the break room. The lights were on. The TV inside was playing static, and seated at the table, sipping from a cracked mug, was Thomas. He looked pale, thinner, as if he hadn't eaten in days. There was a tremor in his hand as he set the mug down. "I shouldn't be here," he whispered. "You're the one who left the box," I said. "Where the hell did you go?" He looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed. "Afraid. You looked in room 213. That's why. That was days ago. You don't understand. Once you see it, it starts unraveling. It remembers you. You're not supposed to see yourself strapped down in there. That was supposed to be a warning, not a prophecy." "Thomas, what is this place?" He didn't answer, just reached into his coat and handed me a photo. A black and white picture. Date stamped 1958. A staff photo. In the middle row was me. I stared at the image, my brain struggling to process the impossibility. "That's not real," I muttered. Thomas nodded. "It's more real than you are right now." I looked at him. He was crying now. "I stayed too long," he whispered. "They offer me answers. I wanted to understand the rules. But the truth is, there aren't rules. There's just a game. When you don't realize you're playing until it's too late." Then, quietly, he pulled out a small revolver and placed it on the table. "I can't let it take me," he said. I moved to stop him. Too late. The gunshot echoed through the break room. I staggered back, heart pounding, as Thomas slumped forward over the table, blood pooling beneath his head. But what froze me wasn't the violence. It was what happened next. His body twitched, not once, but several times. Then slowly, unnaturally, he stood up, still slumped forward, still bleeding. He turned toward me, eyes black, mouth stitched shut. I ran, down the hall, around corners, past doors that whispered and walls that bled. And just as I hit the stairwell, I ran straight into myself again. But not the stitch-mouthed doppelganger from the road. This version was alive, bleeding from a fresh gash on his temple. We stared at each other, mirrored panic in our faces. "I'm not supposed to be here," he said. "What does that mean?" He looked over his shoulder, eyes wide. "They made two of us. Someone chose wrong, and now we're both stuck." Then he collapsed. The building shuddered. Every light went out. An alarm began to ring, low, pulsing, and somehow inside my head, from somewhere deep below, I heard room 213's door creak open. I stumbled back to the security room. The monitors were all frozen. Every hallway, every room, except one, 213. On the screen, the door was open wide now. Something stepped out, tall, shrouded in black. Its face was a blur, but not empty. It flickered like TV static, shifting, rotating through my own face and Thomas's, and faces I didn't even recognize. As it moved down the hallway, lights above it blew out in a cascading wave of sparks. I found another note waiting on the desk. Not typed, not official, just scratched on an old patient chart in desperate handwriting. You can't beat it, but you can delay it. The rules are a leash. Break them, and it notices. Follow them, and it plays with you. You have to find room 0. It's the only place it can't reach. Room 0. I had never seen any mention of it. No key, no listing, but somewhere deep in my gut, I knew it existed. And I knew it was the only way to survive. As I left the security room, the hospital groaned again. This deep, bone-shaking noise that felt alive. I turned a corner and nearly screamed. The man in scrubs stood in the hall, just as the rules warned. His face was blank, eyes cloudy like a corpse. In his hands, he held a deck of cards. He smiled and spoke, voice like static run through a smile. Pick a card. I didn't move. He stepped forward. Pick a card. His eyes began to bleed. And then, I did the unthinkable. I picked one. It was the ace of spades. He stared at it, smiled wider, and slowly vanished, cards fluttering to the ground like dead butterflies. I thought it was over, until I turned around and saw him again, further down the hall, waiting, still smiling, still holding the same deck. The hospital doesn't want me to leave. It knows me now, knows my name, my face, my soul. But I know something too. Room 0 exists. I'm going to find it. And when I do, maybe I'll finally understand what this place really is. Maybe I'll finally wake up from this nightmare wearing the skin of a job. The door with no handle. The rules are getting thinner. That's the only way I can describe it. They used to feel like ironclad laws. Twisted, yes, but consistent. Now, they feel like suggestions, rules made of tissue paper, fluttering just out of reach, written in a language I almost understand. And something's tearing them down. Room 213's occupant is loose. Thomas is dead, twice in 2 different ways. The man in scrubs won't stop showing up. And I keep seeing versions of myself in places I haven't been. The hospital is unraveling. And the only thread I have left to follow is room 0. 12:08 a.m. The hunt begins. I started the shift with my flashlight flickering like it was afraid. The janitor's closet in the east wing had vanished. Not clothes gone. The wall was seamless now, as if the door never existed. Even the dust had rearranged to fill in the shape. The black paperclip from the envelope was gone too. In its place, a sliver of mirror. No frame, just a jagged shard resting where I'd left the envelope. My reflection was warped in it, mouth moving a full second behind me. I blinked. My reflection didn't. I threw it down and moved fast. If room 0 was real, I had to find it before something else found me. 12:36 a.m., the sub-basement. Every building has a basement. This one has a sub-basement. I found it hidden behind a linen closet, wedged between industrial water heaters and rusting carts. The key from room 13 still buzzed warm in my pocket, and when I pressed it to the wall, the bricks shimmered. Not melted, not slid open. They just blinked out of existence, and there it was, a staircase spiraling down in a blackness that smelled like wet soil and old teeth. I hesitated only once, then descended. Each step creaked like it was screaming. The deeper I went, the more the air changed. Less oxygen, more something else. The walls bled condensation that looked like sweat and tasted like salt when it landed on my tongue. And the sounds, not pipes, not wind, voices, whispering, arguing, sobbing. One voice sounded like my mother. Another sounded like me, repeating the rules in a manic loop. Don't respond to the vents. Don't look in a room 213. Don't pick a card. I reached the bottom. Concrete hallway. One light overhead, swinging slightly. 7 doors. None of them marked, except the last one. That one had no handle, no hinges, just a carved, Crooked zero in the center. 1:04 a.m., the door. I don't know how long I stood there. Every instinct screamed to run, to leave, to not touch that door. But the rules don't mention room zero. No warnings. No instructions. That made it different. That made it mine. I pressed my hand against the door. It didn't open. Instead, it inhaled. That's the best way to describe it. Like the wall itself sucked in breath, and me with it. Darkness collapsed. My feet left the floor. Sound turned to static. Then everything exploded into colorless, silent light. 1:08 a.m., the white room. I was standing in a white room. No shadows, no fixtures, no sound. Just endless, glowing nothing. Except for one thing, a metal table in the center. And sitting behind it was me. But not the stitched-mouthed doppelganger. Not the bleeding reflection. This one looked calm, older, wearing a version of my janitor uniform that was pressed and spotless. He looked up at me and smiled. "You made it," he said. "You're not real," I said. "Neither are you," he replied. He gestured to the seat across from him. "Sit. You deserve answers." I hesitated, but I sat. "Where am I?" He folded his hands on the table. "Room zero, the eye of the spiral. It's the place between rules, where the hospital's grip weakens. I don't understand. You've been repeating tasks, cleaning floors, avoiding ghosts, following rules you think keep you safe. But you're not a janitor. Then what am I? You're the subject." He slid a folder across the table. I opened it. Inside, clinical reports, photographs, scans of my brain, pages of erratic handwriting, my handwriting. Subject 019 exhibits severe dissociation. Repeats fictitious job narrative to cope with trauma. Obsessed with fabricated rules. Believes they protect him from the darkness beyond room 213. Has created multiple mental avatars to protect core identity. Dangerous when confronted with reality. I felt like vomiting. This isn't real. He tilted his head. Then why do you know where the mop closet is? Why do you follow instructions taped to your time card? I tried to stand. My legs failed me. You created the rules, he said gently, to keep yourself sane. 1:19 a.m. The truth unfolds. He walked around the table and crouched in front of me. Think back, he said. Before the job, before the hospital. What happened? Images surged. Flashes of trauma. A wrecked car. A girl in the passenger seat. My little sister, Emily. A sob broke from my throat. You couldn't save her, he said. So you created this world. A place where you could follow rules. Where the chaos had logic. But it's real now. Thomas, the patient in 213, the card trick. All manifestations, he said. Symptoms of a fractured psyche clinging to order. He leaned closer, but something broke through. That's when I felt it. A presence behind me. A cold so intense it wasn't temperature. It was absence. Of light. Of soul. Of meaning. I turned, and the wall behind me had been replaced by a window. Through it, room 213. But now I saw it clearly. It wasn't a room. It was a cell, a cage, and inside it was something that wasn't a person. It looked like flesh, used flesh like someone had stitched together discarded versions of myself. It stared at me with 100 eyes, each blinking out of sync. You let it out, the man said. You are it. 1:23 a.m. Collapse. The hospital didn't just hold me. It was me. Room 213 was the guilt, the shame, the repressed truth. Room zero was the only fragment of clarity. But now, the lines were collapsing. The presence smashed the window. The glass didn't break. It screamed, and then everything began to bleed. The white room turned black. The table melted into shadows. The man, my double, backed away, eyes wide. You brought it here, he said. I turned. The stitch thing, the not me, was crawling through the window. Its many hands dragged it forward, nails clicking on the floor like insect legs. "You can't fight it," my double whispered. "You can only forget it." Then he shoved me backward. I fell, through floor and memory and time, through screams and rules and stitched mouths, through the moment of the crash, through Emily's eyes as the windshield shattered. 1:39 a.m., waking up. I was lying on the floor of the janitor's closet, breathing hard. Cold sweat soaked my shirt. The walls were real again. The mop bucket, the tools, my name tag, Bennett, still there, still me. But the rule sheet had changed. Only one sentence now. "The hospital is you. Keep it clean." I stumbled out into the hallway. No patients, no staff, no monitors buzzing with static. Only silence. I walked the halls. Room 213 was gone. Room 13 was bricked over. The car man never came. But I felt it all, lurking behind the walls, behind my ribs, beneath my skin. I still followed the rules. I still cleaned. Because if I let the rules rot, it would come back. The stitch thing, the guilt, the part of me that deserved to be in room 213. I'm the last rule. They told me to follow the rules, to clean what I could see and ignore what I couldn't. But I've seen too much now. I've seen what's behind room 213 and what's inside me. The hospital isn't just a building. It's a prison for something far worse than insanity. And I'm the last thing standing between that thing and the rest of the world. 12:01 a.m., final shift. The last shift began like any other. Clocked in, flickering fluorescent lights, mops squeaking across linoleum. But everything had changed. There were no staff anymore. No orderlies. No med techs. Not even the warden. The entire hospital was silent, holding its breath. The rules were gone. I don't mean the paper was missing. I mean the concept of rules had evaporated. The hall stretched wrong now. Doors led to brick walls or staircases that ended in ceilings. Water dripped up. Reflections blinked without me. And yet I cleaned, because something inside me still believed it mattered. Because if I didn't, the thing that crawled from room 213 would take control again. 1:03 a.m., static in the air. As I scrubbed blood, yes, real blood, off the east wing tiles, the intercom clicked on. It hadn't worked in weeks. A voice came through, crackled, distant, yet horribly familiar. "Janitor Bennett, report to the lower ward. Room 0. My chest tightened. That voice, it was Emily's. My little sister's. But she was dead. She had to be. I left the mop in the bucket and moved. Down the malformed halls, past flickering lights and walls that breathed like lungs. The elevator opened before I pressed the button. It already knew where I was going. 1:17 a.m. Return to room 0. The sub-basement had changed. It wasn't concrete anymore. The stairs were made of bone. The walls were stitched flesh, pulsing, bleeding, weeping in slow waves. My steps echoed with wet squelches, and the further I went, the heavier the air became. At the bottom, room 0 had a handle now. And this time, I didn't hesitate. I opened it and stepped into memory. 1:18 a.m., the car crash. I wasn't in the hospital anymore. I was in the car moments before the crash. Rain streaked the windshield. Music played low on the radio. Emily was in the passenger seat, smiling, telling me to slow down. I didn't. I was angry. Some stupid fight with my girlfriend, or a bill, or something that didn't matter. But I'd push the pedal harder, just to feel like I had control. Then, the truck's headlights, the curve too sharp, the scream, impact, and silence. Only not quite. This time, I heard the voice in the silence. "Make it right." 1:19 a.m., the spiral. I blinked and was back in room 0. Except it wasn't white anymore. It was a spiraling vortex of light and shadow, memory and madness, spinning around a single object. A mirror, tall, cracked, and humming like it held a trapped scream. The reflection inside was me, but stitched together, grinning with 100 teeth, eyes replaced with keys, and bones poking through janitor overalls. The creature stepped forward, dragging chains behind it. I stood my ground. "You're not real," I said. It smiled wider. "I'm what's left when you stop pretending." 1:21 a.m. The truth of room 213. The truth hit me like cold water. Room 213 wasn't just a cell. It was my compartmentalized trauma. My grief, my guilt, my self-hatred. I'd buried it deep, locked it behind rules, behind a false reality where I was just the janitor, following orders. But the barrier had been weakening for months. With each rule I broke or questioned, it had grown stronger. And now here it was, free. But the spiral showed me something else. Other versions of me, janitors and other spirals. Some fighting, some consumed. One cradled his own corpse. Another mopped a floor made of screaming mouths. There were thousands of me, and in every version, the hospital was collapsing. Except one. 1:24 a.m., the final rule. I approached the mirror. The creature, not me, snarled. It reached out, and I held up the old key from room 13. The one that buzzed warm. The one that had never stopped working. I pressed it to the mirror, and the creature screamed, "That's mine." "No," I said. "It's me." The glass shattered. The spiral collapsed, and everything turned white. 1:25 a.m., the return. I woke in the janitor's closet again, but it wasn't silent anymore. The hospital buzzed with life, sort of. There were staff again. Lights worked. Rooms were numbered in order. No flesh on the walls. No voices in the vents. I stepped out. A nurse nodded to me. A doctor sipped coffee. No one looked possessed or decayed. But they didn't smile either. They never smiled. On the bulletin board outside the staff lounge was a list of cleaning duties for the week. And at the top, taped with new white paper, was a new set of rules. Just one line. Do not forget who you are. 1:30 a.m. Epilogue. A clean mind. I still mop the floors. I still sweep the halls. But I know the truth now. The hospital is me, and I am the thing keeping it together. Every crack in the wall, every bloodstain on tile, every shadow in a hallway is a fragment of my broken self. If I stop cleaning, if I forget, the spiral will open again. Room 213 will return, and the stitched thing, the grief, the guilt, the rage will rise. So I clean every damn night, because I am not just a janitor. I am the last rule, the end.